For 3 months, the silence from the FBI was deafening. The vibrant life of 18-year-old Anna Kepner had been reduced to a sealed case file and a grieving community in Titusville. But today, that silence was shattered. As cameras flashed outside a Miami federal courthouse, a hooded figure with a bowed head walked past the world's questions, marking the moment this mysterious death officially transformed into a federal criminal reckoning. Tonight, we go inside the courthouse and the dark final hours of the Carnival Horizon. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. The quiet investigation that had simmered for 3 months since the Carnival Horizon docked in November 2025 finally reached a public boiling point in early February 2026. For months, the community in Titusville and the observers on social media had been asking the same question. Why hasn't there been an arrest? The answer came not in the form of a press release, but in a grainy image captured by NBC6 cameras outside a Miami federal courthouse. The image was haunting. A 16-year-old boy, draped in a dark hoodie with his head bowed to the pavement, walking past a gauntlet of reporters. Beside him stood his attorney, silent and stoic. When a reporter shouted the question that has haunted this case, "Did you kill your stepsister?" the silence from the boy was deafening. This moment marked the official transition of the Anna Kepner case from a death investigation into a federal criminal proceeding. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere was thick with the weight of the federal government. This was not a local state court. Because the death occurred on the high seas, the case is handled by the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI. The hearing was held in a sealed courtroom, a standard procedure for cases involving minors in the federal system. Behind those closed doors were U.S. Marshals, federal prosecutors, and a public defender. The media and the public were barred from entering, leaving the world to speculate on the nature of the charges being discussed. This appearance is significant for several reasons. First, it confirms that the FBI has moved past the evidence-gathering phase and has reached a threshold of probable cause. Second, the teenager's visit to a nearby probation office following the hearing suggests he may be under a form of federal pretrial supervision or home confinement, while the court decides the next critical step. Will he be tried as a child or an adult? The stakes of this jurisdictional battle cannot be overstated. In the federal juvenile system, the goal is rehabilitation, and the court's authority typically ends when the individual reaches age 21. For a crime as severe as the armbar strangulation of an 18-year-old girl, many argue that a 5-year window of supervision is insufficient. If the U.S. attorney moves to transfer him to adult status, the boy would face the full weight of federal sentencing guidelines, where a conviction for second-degree murder on the high seas could mean decades in a federal penitentiary. As the boy walked out of that courthouse and disappeared into a waiting vehicle, he left behind a trail of unanswered questions. What did the surveillance video show? What was found on the electronic keycard logs? For the family of Anna Kepner, the sight of the boy in court was a painful reminder that the 2 peas in a pod narrative had been permanently replaced by a federal case file. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. To understand the gravity of the charges the 16-year-old is facing, one must look back at the environment inside Cabin 8 on the Carnival Horizon. The transcript of the unrelated custody hearing involving the boy's parents, Chantel and her ex-husband, provides a chilling blueprint of the final hours of Anna Kepner's life. The decision to place 3 teenagers, Anna, 18, the suspect, 16, and a younger brother, 14, in a single stateroom was presented as a convenience suggested by a travel agent. It was supposed to be a blended family celebration, a new tradition for a newly formed household. But the reality was far more complex. While the grandparents told ABC News that the siblings were 2 peas in a pod, other voices have painted a picture of a young woman living in fear. Testimony and media reports have highlighted a disturbing history of alleged obsession. The father of Anna's ex-boyfriend claimed that Anna was terrified of her stepbrother, describing incidents where the boy would hover over her while she slept or carry a large knife around their home in Titusville. This contrast in narratives, the happy family versus the terrified sister, is the central tension that prosecutors are now navigating. The night of November 6th was the beginning of the end. Chantel Hudson testified that the teenagers headed back to their room around 7:30 p.m. She admitted that she never went across the hall to check on them. She never verified if the 16-year-old had taken his critical nighttime medication, clonidine, which was prescribed to manage his insomnia and ADHD. This supervision gap is where the tragedy occurred. According to reports, the 14-year-old brother was in the room that night and allegedly heard yelling and a struggle. In a massive ship with 4,000 passengers and 15 decks of entertainment, the most horrific act was happening in the silence of a small, windowless cabin. The medical examiner's 11:17 a.m. time of death is the most damning piece of forensic evidence. If Anna died at 11:17 a.m. on Friday, it means she was killed while the ship was already humming with the activity of the final day at sea. Breakfasts being served, passengers packing, and the crew preparing for the return to Miami. The condition in which she was found, hidden under a bed and covered with life jackets, negates any theory of a medical emergency. Life jackets on a cruise ship are symbols of safety, meant to preserve life. In this case, they were allegedly used to obscure a homicide. This detail suggests a consciousness of guilt that the FBI has spent the last 3 months documenting. As the case moves forward in the Miami federal court, the focus will shift to the digital evidence. Every time a door opens on a modern cruise ship, a computer log is created. The FBI now knows exactly when that 16-year-old entered the room and, perhaps more importantly, that he never left to seek help until the body was discovered by a housekeeper. The transition from the dream vacation to the federal courthouse is now complete, and the focus turns to the search for a motive that can explain why a brother-sister bond ended in a violent, silent struggle on the high seas. And as always, you've been watching True Crime Story Vault, where every story is told with facts, empathy, and respect for those who can no longer speak for themselves. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button and comment your thoughts below. Until next time, remember, the truth is never buried.